So now we're going to start filling this thing up. And what I'm using is the plastic panels in some cases that come with the model. Because remember, this has parts that are opened and off and things, and you can display things open. So I just am trying to see which ones will fit. And so far, they've all fit pretty well. And so all I'm doing is going through and say on that engine compartment thing, that's supposed to be painted anyway, but I'm still going to cover it up, brush painted anyway. And I put a little bit of that Eileen's tacky white glue, turbo tacky glue, which won't hold these in forever. I'll be able to pull them apart, but they will tack them in place. And these things fit like a glove. They're just amazing. Usually when there's parts that are extra on an airplane that are, supposed to be for panels and things and operational features and all this, they don't really fit or they look dumb. This thing, if you really wanted to have it closed up completely, around the engine, it would look great. I want to have mine open, but it would be absolutely fine. So this kit is so old, and yet I've never seen one fit quite like this. I mean, that looks like it's supposed to look. That's amazing to me. The front one maybe needs a little help, but overall, even that doesn't look bad. But that will help cover those up because you can mask with all kinds of things, tape and all kinds of stuff. Now these wheel wells I want to clean up a little bit. The oleo struts I can repaint, that's no problem. But these come with their own covers, of course, and I'm going to remake these anyway because they're thick. What I decided to do was take these two pieces and glue them together and then set them in there. Those two little pieces of attachment that go in those little holes that are in the root of the wheel well, those have to be removed. I know it's kind of out of focus because I'm too far away on this one, but I'm just cutting off those two little nippers and making sure that they're relatively flat because all this, I'm not trying for a perfect fit, just want to get most of it cleaned up so that so that when I spray, it won't get all over the place. And what I had to do too was I'm not going to use these anyway. I'm gonna put them in, and these are huge holes that are opening here for to put those inner doors in. I'm going to try to make them look a little better. So what I had to saw through these a little bit, and then I used my little plastic clippers there to cut off the excess. And again, this is okay because these are going to be hidden, and or I'm going to put the doors in a slightly different way so they look more scale-like. So I'm not worried about cutting those off. That way I can put these things in all the way. So what I decided to do was get rid of the primer that's on these both sides because otherwise the glue will not stick well. I'm just realizing I got to get the other side cut too, or take off the primer on this side too. So just scrape that off so that you get good contact and things will glue nicely. And then a touch of this glue and they will glue together just like that. And then I'll be able to put them into the wheel well and they'll cover up most of the wheel well. Not all of it, but most of it. So put a little shot on there and then snap these guys together, hold them for a second until the glue starts to set. They don't even have to be terribly level. They're just there to keep my gray paint ultimately from getting into those wheel wells. There'll be some touch up I'm sure to do, but it won't be a big deal at all. The oleo struts will be painted gray, but then I'll come back and repaint them. That won't be hard. That will look just fine. I'm not worried about that. It'll be easier to paint them afterwards. Or maybe I'll stick some foil around them or something. I'll see what I can do. But I do the same thing. A little bit of this white glue in a couple strategic places just to tack, and seems to work okay. Just a little bit, and again, this will all can be sort of scraped off, and you won't even know it was there. And it's just enough to hold these pieces in place. And again, you could just use the tried old methods of sponges and or tissue paper stuffed in there. What I like about tissue paper is that you put it in, you wet it a little bit, and it conforms very well. But then you always have little hairy bits of toilet paper or tissue paper that end up sort of sticking around. And then you start to scrape them off, and they end up scraping the plastic, the paper, the paint, and I just don't like them. So since I have these ready-made masks, I may as well use them. So that's how I did both sides. Now, I'm going to have to fill a few things, and this airplane has raised panel details on it, and I want to save them as much as possible. So I'm cutting strips of Tamiya tape, and what I'm going to do is basically put those over or on either side of, in this case, this one wing root on this side really needs help. It's a big crevice there. The other side's pretty good. The other side I don't think I need to touch. But this side I need to at least lessen it so it looks like the other side. So cutting this tape very thin allows it to conform around curves pretty well. So what I'm going to do is put a piece on either side, straddling this, and then fill in outside of those pieces with some more tape. The idea is to, again, when I start filling, I don't want to put a whole bunch of putty everywhere and have it all slathered every place. I want to have it kind of pinpoint. So I'm putting this up against and bringing it along. And again, if this tape is pretty thin, it kind of will go around curves pretty nicely. And I'm just trying to get it so that it's just on the outside of that seam. And then I do this part and then kind of tamp it down a little bit. And then you do the opposite side. And then, as I said, you fill in the outside of these pieces of tape to cover up the edges. And then we're going to throw in some putty. So that's at least the plan. Because again, the raised panel lines on this I don't hate. I want to keep them. And when you start putting putty on things, it can really be a mess. And so I thought, okay, if I put some tape around either side, hopefully I will just get mostly, not perfectly, but hopefully most of what I get will be just the seam, and then it'll make cleaning up much easier. So I'm just making sure that's tight in there, and then I just cut a couple pieces of thicker kind of haphazard tape, because all these have to do then is extend the lines on either side, extend the tape on either side, and they don't have to be perfect, but just to make it so that again, I'm not going to be destroying everything on the outside, because once you start to sand and things, I want to try to keep it from destroying everything. So put a little bit of this down and put some on the opposite side up on the top. That one's a little harder to do, but again, this doesn't have to be perfect. It's just to sort of hide most of that plastic in there. And now you've got this little area that's just as thick as the tape. So it will be raised when it's done, but it'll be much easier to pull, to sand down. So you take your putty of choice. In my case, I use this Tamiya putty, which seems to work pretty well. The first coat usually shrinks a lot, I think. It usually takes a couple of coats in my hands anyway. It depends how deep the hole is. And if this goes down a little bit, I don't care, because I think the line is not bad having that fine line there. I just didn't want to have it as obvious as that's on this side. So what I did was I kind of carefully took my little pick, and you could use a toothpick, whatever you want, and you just fill this thing in kind of thick. Make sure it gets and covers the big crack, and I go all the way down. And again, this makes it so I don't muck up the edges or either side, and I'm kind of just getting most of what I need is just going into the hole that's the line that really needs it. If you were gonna put new panel lines on this or whatever, it wouldn't matter. You could go crazy and sand this to your heart's content and smooth everything out, and then come back and reinstall the panel lines. There'd be no problem. But since I don't want to do that, and I am trying to keep the panel lines, the raised lines as they are, which actually are fine and look pretty good on this. I'm trying to make my job, hopefully, the less sanding you got to do, sort of the better, in my opinion. Oh, but nice knuckles you have. Okay, so now what you do, though, is take a little cotton bud or Q-tip, put it in lacquer thinner, and then you just draw it along that line of the putty. And what that does, you could use nail polish remover. You could use, at least nail polish remover. I've used that before. But I use lacquer thinner most recently, and you just roll that with either a Q-tip or just a nice brush. Well, a brush that you're going to destroy anyway, ultimately. What that does is smooth it out. So again, the less sanding you need, the better. There's my lacquer thinner. Just to remember to tell you that that's what I'm using. And that's all there is to it. Now on the bottom here, everything's fine, but right there is the worst parts of the whole model is that big seam and a couple of big sink marks, one there and one there. So all I'm going to do now is put a fairly liberal amount on here. A lot of the seams I don't think I'm going to have to deal with. Like some of the main fuselage seams look pretty good. But down here, this does need help. Even though you're not going to display the model upside down, it's good to clean it up. So again, I put a fair amount on there, probably much more than I need to. And then I smooth it out with my Q-tip and my lacquer thinner soaked Q-tip. And the more you can kind of carefully smooth it, again, the less you got to do, the less sanding you got to do later. So it's just a matter of, it's like doing drywall. That's all it is. All this model stuff, model airplanes and model tanks and ships are all useless. What a waste of time. Well, if you know how to do this stuff, you now know how to do many home improvements. I'll just say that. Or fixing your car and getting dents out of your car and using Bondo. It actually is a pretty useful skill to know how to do, because that's all the very same as this. It's just, there's probably a little more riding on it and it's more expensive, but it's the exact same techniques, the exact same skills. So who said models were useless? That looks okay. I'm not going to worry about that. When I prime it, I'll see, but I think it looks okay. That root, I think, is fine. I'm not going to play with it. The last part is up here that needs help, because that one is a seam that I have to close up a little bit. And so I do the very same thing I did on the wing root. I think I speed this up because you'll fall asleep. But I just put a little bit of tape on either side. And on this case, I forgot to put more tape on the outside. But it still was okay. Put it on either side, straddle the seam, kind of press it down, make sure it's good. And then I just want to make sure I cover up part of the canopy. The canopy, in our next video, we're going to start masking the canopy. That'll be a blast. I hate masking canopies. Oh, I dread it. But in this case, I just want to make sure I don't put any putty on it. So I'm just kind of covering it up so that everything maintains a certain amount of beauty, so that I can go ahead and put my putty along that seam. So now I do the very same thing I did with the wing root. A little bit of putty smeared along that whole piece, and you just very carefully put that down. And you don't have to put a huge amount on. And again, right about here, I remembered, oh, I should have put some tape on the outside. See, I already spilled over. What a doorknob. But it'll be okay. It won't be that bad. But all I'm doing is putting this down along that line, and I will do the same thing. Take a Q-tip soaked with lacquer thinner and just drag it down. One swell foop. One good swipe will make it look pretty good. And then you just let it sit and dry. And what we'll do, I'll let it dry until tomorrow or something, and I'll show removing the tape, and we'll see what happens. Maybe a little bit of sanding before I remove the tape. I also noticed that back on that scoop needs a little bit of help. So I got a little bit of putty that's still on my Q-tip, so I just use it and smear it down, and it works like a charm. So basically that's filled in. And so now, again, what you do is let it dry. And I think the rest of the fuselage is fine, I think. So I'll be sanding these and filling them and playing around. I'll show you how we do it. And then we will mask the canopies, fill up the other little bitty holes, and then we will start painting, priming and painting, which will be fun. Can't wait to get this thing started. It'll be pretty cool. So anyway, there it is. A good start.